Configuring the switch management IP address. Earlier in the series, I created a nugget called the best base configuration ever. I love that title. It sounds so teenagerish. It's like totally the best base configuration ever. So in there, I talked about a lot of things where I did some commands. I'm like, we're going to talk about these later. So I just want to give you the feel of what it's like to be in the iOS, and this is the core of the configuration. One of those things was the switch management IP address. I said, we'll talk about this later. Let's just put an IP address on it. Well, now is going to be where we talk about it, because in the switching fundamentals, one of the first things you have to do is assign an IP address to the device. Now, switch 1 was our example when we did the best base configuration ever. And now I've brought up switch, well, will become switch 2. It's right now just factory defaulted. I erased the configuration, or erased startup configuration. So I figured we're together. We're going to talk about the management IP address. Why not do a little review while we're here, right? So I booted this device with the console port attached. You can see it's saying, do you want to enter the initial config? What do we answer? No. Get to a switch prompt. Now I'm in user mode. I'm going to go in and let's just slap a base configuration on there. I'm going to go into global configuration mode. Let's say hostname switch 2. Let's do SSH while we're here too, right? IP domain name we'll call cbtnuggets.com so that we can crypto key generate RSA keys, and we'll say the modulus is 1024. Give it a couple seconds. That'll generate. That's good. I'm going to go in and create a user account. Username, I'll make it Jeremy. Password, let's go secret Cisco to encrypt that password. And by the way, when we did this in the SSH, enabling SSH nuggets before, there's no order. And I know that's probably a question orbiting someone's mind is, do you have to type this all in order? I mean, it seems like you're just like, let's do a user account. Let's do that. Yeah, I mean, no, actually you don't. There's some things, like for instance, there's some things that you need to have in order. I can't think of any right now, but I mean, the commands can be, there we go. I can't turn on the crypto keys. I can't do this command until I give it a domain name, because otherwise it won't have the domain for the crypto keys, right? So some of them have to be in order. That's a good example, but not everything. So let's go line console 0. We'll do a little logging synchronous, so my prompts are repasted after I get a status message. We'll do no exec dash timeout, so it doesn't time me out. I'll do line VTY04. And we'll do login local, which says use the local user database for logins. That's where I can use that user account. I will do, let's do exec. I'm going to make my VTY sessions last a little longer. Let's go 60 minutes. Not the greatest for production, but in the lab, you know what? 60 minutes is a great idle timer. And then what else was I going to do here? Login local. Oh, big one. Transport, input, telnet, and SSH. Because by default, it only allows telnet. SSH just won't work. So SSH is now enabled. I'll type in the command no IP domain -lookup, which keeps those mistyped commands in privilege mode from causing me pause for 30-some seconds. And we need to protect the privilege mode. I'll do an enable secret command Cisco to protect that transition from user mode to privilege mode. Now, let's bail out. I'll do a show IP interface brief. Take a look right here. We've got VLAN 1, which is currently unassigned and unset. Now, what is VLAN 1? Well, we're about to get into VLANs. That'll be the next major topic that we hit after we get out of the switching fundamentals. And that is the ability to break your switch up, meaning separate it into multiple virtual networks, primarily for security, but also for IP address management, to get more IP addresses that you can use in your network, as well as quality of service. There's a lot of reasons we do VLANs, and every single switch that supports them is actually doing them out of the box. The reason nobody knows is all the ports are a member of the virtual LAN 1. That's the default VLAN on not just Cisco devices, but every device that supports VLANs in the world, right? So that's why we don't know about this concept of VLAN until we get in there and configure some more things. So inside of this switch, there's this virtual interface called VLAN 1. You can't see it on there. It's not a physical port. If you ripped open the lid, there wouldn't be a chip called VLAN 1. It's just a virtual interface that we can use to assign an IP address for management purposes. And I want to make sure I hit that, because people start getting comfortable with the OSI model. They're like, okay, a switch is a data link layer device. It learns MAC addresses. Why does it need an IP address? Well, because we have to manage it. I want to be able to configure it without having to be in a cold server room with a console cable. So I'm going to go in, and there's a couple of ways we can do it. I'm going to go into global config interface VLAN 1, and I see right now, and by the way, this is trivia. This is not going to be something if you're an exam studier, but if you have active ports when you factory default the switch, it will actually have the VLAN 1 up by default. If it doesn't have active ports when you factory default the switch, meaning when it's first booting up, it will keep the VLAN 1 interface administratively down, which means you have to do the no shutdown command, right? And I'm just always used to typing that in anyway. So you can get an IP address a couple ways. I can do IP address, add address, and question mark, and you can see I could configure it statically. If I was crazy, I could say, well, let's do it via DHCP, which means this switch could just get some random IP address assigned by a DHCP server, but that wouldn't be good because then we'd have to go find out, and by the way, there's a lot of devices like this that just grab one, and then we have to go find the DHCP server somewhere. Like I have one right now on my network, and it's saying, hey, I just received 10.1.1.66. TFTPD32, that little TFTP program I showed you, also can be a DHCP server. Isn't that fun for network chaos at work? By the way, don't do that because you'll hand out all kinds of rogue IP addresses and they may get mad at you. So right there I can see 66, it found the MAC address of the switch when it assigned it. But I don't like that. I don't like having to go find the DHCP server, and I want that address of the switch to be static. So I'm going to do instead IP address 10.1.1.3. The other switch is .2. And that will automatically overwrite the IP address DHCP. You can see it kind of pause in there for a little bit. It's like, okay, done. So I will do a Control-Z back out, show IP interface brief. And now I see 10.1.1.3 is up and running on this device. By the way, I should also mention there's some commands that overwrite, some commands you want to negate. Like for instance, if I type in hostname S3, it overwrites the old hostname S2. If I go under interface VLAN 1 and I said IP address 10.1.1.4, it automatically overwrites the IP address that's there. It now becomes .4 instead of .3. I could type in no IP address and remove it first and then put on the old one. It's totally up to you. You know, it's like one of those, do you like sweeping the table first and then putting the food on there, or you just put the food on top? I'm kind of like a food on top guy. So anyway, I'm going to go back here, do a show IP interface brief. I'm thinking about barbecue grills. My wife is appalled because I never use the little scraper on the barbecue grill because, all the old, good, tasty stuff from, the burnt chicken stuff. And so I just throw the food on. That's what I was talking about. Is you just kind of, anyway, never is like, I'm not eating at his house. So now, I can come in there. Let's do a clear screen on my command prompt. Ping. This is on my computer now because this was the console port. Ping 10.1.1.3. And I'm holding my breath, and we are alive. A lot of times the first ping will fail while it's waiting for that ARP. Windows gets a little too anxious. And now I should be able to telnet to 10.1.1.3, asking for my username, Jeremy, because I did login local, password Cisco. I'm in via telnet, which is all great and clear texty, right? But I would probably feel a little better if I could do an SSH connection using PuTTY 10.1.1.3. It should come up and say, oh, brand new cryptography key. I'll click on yes, save that. Login as Jeremy. Password is Cisco. So now I'm consoled in, telnetted in, and SSH'd in to the same device. And that is how you configure a switch management IP address. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.